Please be seated. And are there any children to come join me this morning? I think they're coming. Are they on the way, Pat? Okay. Here they come. Come on up. Let me see. Here come more. Good. So I have more plants this week, as you guys can see. I've got flowers this time. Oh, here we go. Come over where you guys can see. This only works if you're over here where you can see and talk with me. So I have these two flowers. What do you guys think? They both pretty? What if I told you that one of these is a weed? Could you figure out which one do you think is the weed? That one. What about you? That one over there. Anybody else? Which one's the weed? This one over here? The white one? Everybody thinks this one is the weed? Why do you think that? You've seen a weed that looks like that before. You think, okay. But it didn't have the flowers on it. It didn't have flowers like that on it, no. But they weren't like that, yeah. So guess which one is the weed? This one. Yeah. Do you know why this one is a weed and this one is not? Somebody planted this one. And this one just showed up. Weeds are funny that way. Sometimes we don't give them a chance because what makes a weed is that it grows someplace where we didn't plan for it to be. Now, sure, there are weeds like poison ivy that there's a reason why we don't want them there. But a lot of weeds, if we let them go, like this brown-eyed Susan here, next thing you know, you have beautiful flowers. People are sort of like these plants. Wait. Well, that's why I said there are things like that. Last week I had those thorns that choked the other plants, and that's true. And there are kudzu certainly does that. Yeah. So there are reasons why we don't want certain plants in certain places. But still, the difference between being a weed and not a weed is whether we put it there or not. It's okay. It's okay. That I can't resist touching them either, Miles. It's all right. People are sort of like these plants. It was hard to pick that this was a weed and that one wasn't. And when it came down to it, the only thing you guys could do was say, well, maybe this one looked a little bit like a weed that you had seen before. It wasn't that the flower isn't pretty, right? These white flowers are pretty. These yellow flowers are pretty. If I put them outside, butterflies will come to both of them. So we know that the insects can make good use out of them both. But still, because this one showed up where it wasn't planned, it's a weed. We treat people that way sometimes, don't we? We pick some and say that they're good and some and say that they're not so good, and we don't always have a very good reason for that, other than this is the person who I wanted to have with me and this is the person I didn't. Other times there are good reasons to not have somebody around because they might hurt us or because of anything else like that. But we've got to be careful. Jesus wants us to learn to see each other in the same way that we can see these flowers. Before I told you there was a weed, you didn't see anything other than two pretty flowers. And I want you all, Nice try, come on. Before I told you that there was a weed here, it was two pretty flowers. When Jesus looks at all of us, all he sees are a bunch of beautiful people who are a little bit different, one from the other. Hair is a little different color. Maybe we have different talents. Maybe some of us are a little more annoying and some of us are a little gentler. But whatever it comes down to, in God's eyes, there's nothing but the beauty that we see in these flowers. And maybe we can learn to see each other in that way that Jesus sees us. Now it is time to line up for the stamps. Please do not pull them out of the pulpit yet. Let's go, guys. No. You want to? There you go. All right, let's go. Always happens if they get to the stamps before I do. I end up with ink everywhere. Scientists tell us that prejudice is actually one of those things that's genetically programmed into us, going back to our animal days, when knowing who was like you was a survival mechanism. That when there's competition for scarce resources, knowing who's going to share with you and who's not going to likely to share with you can mean the difference between life and death. But we human beings, once we get past that survival stage, still have that trigger in our brains that makes us want to go to those who are like us. And what we do with that beyond that point is where prejudice becomes problematic. Part of our prejudices, of course, are based on really silly things like physical characteristics. Many of them are based around more complex issues like religion or politics or any number of other situations where we can divide ourselves into an us and them and try to figure out who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. But like those plants, it's really only when somebody tells us that something is good or bad, that something's worth having or not having, that we usually cling to those differences. I'm a gardener, and as I've said before, and one of the things I have learned over the years of gardening is that the more room I leave for the weeds to grow, the more likely I am to be surprised by something like those brown-eyed Susans. They don't start out looking like much of anything, just some leaves that are crowding out my tomato plant or whatever else I thought I really wanted to have growing there. And sometimes, for the sake of those things that I really want to grow, the weeds have to go. But if I can let them go, then I can be surprised and realize that the weed might end up being more desirable than whatever I thought I was trying to grow. People are like that too. I know my own prejudices within me. I know which people I would rather hang around and which ones I would rather not hang around. And while my list is different, I'm sure, from your list, every one of you, if you're honest, will recognize that that list exists somewhere inside of your head. And despite all of our very well-educated reasons for why those lists exist, when we let ourselves have some room to get past them, my own experience tells me that the people who aren't on my list of good guys, time and time again, will surprise me. The parable tells us indeed that the weeds and the wheat at some point might need some separation. But notice in the parable, as Jesus explains it, whose job it is to sort all of that out. God. The idea of separating ourselves one from the other, the idea of figuring out who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, is above our pay grade. And when we make it our job to sort out, often what we end up doing is missing out on the beauty that exists for us if we're only patient enough to let the weeds come into bloom. The kingdom of God, as Jesus is teaching us in these parables over these few weeks that we're in right now, is about looking at the world through a set of eyes unlike our own. Our eyes see difference as bad, and Jesus' eyes see difference as beauty. If we are willing to look with Jesus' eyes, then we will indeed find ourselves in that kingdom where even weeds can turn out to be something that surprises us with a beauty or a utility that we did not expect.